Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Monchetti.
Our headlines today. Torrential downpours cause floods in southern Scotland and northwest England as 2 footbridges are swept away with a warning of more rain to come.
Fighting over fishing. The French ambassador is in London, summoned to the Foreign Office as the row between the UK and France escalates.
Pope Francis urges world leaders to make radical decisions to tackle climate change as Glasgow makes final preparations for a major global conference.
Good morning. England and Northern Ireland will face each other in the Women's Euros. The 2 home nations were drawn together and will also play Norway and Austria in next summer's tournament.
Good morning. I'm at St Peter Mancroft Church in Norwich this morning with the awe-inspiring Gaia art installation. Now, the weather has been very wet over recent days. We've still got flood warnings in force and some more rain around today too, but it should dry up for most of us later on. I'll have all the details coming up shortly.
Friday, October the 29th. One of the rail lines between Scotland and England remains closed this morning after 2 footbridges were washed away because of flooding.
It follows a day of torrential rain in parts of the border region and Cumbria, with more downpours forecast today. Floods damaged property and closed several roads. Aruna Iyengar has this report.
Scotland was lashed with torrential rain with multiple flood and danger to life warnings across the country. Here in Dumfries and Galloway, the River Annan burst its banks. 2 footbridges were swept away, including this, the Cuthbertson Memorial Bridge. In the White Sands area of Dumfries, police warned people to stay away from the area after the River Nith burst its banks. Emergency services worked together, rescuing 4 people from flooded homes. In Hawick, in the Scottish borders, the River Teviot reached a peak of 2.9 metres before waters started to recede. Residents had been evacuated from homes, but there's some relief. They've now been told it's safe to go home. Schools in the Peebles area were closed as the River Tweed burst its banks. This, a riverbank view in Cumbria. A month's worth of rain fell on Wednesday and into Thursday. Here in Cockermouth, flood defences have been a lifeline, but residents are weary and want longer-term solutions.
I think the government need to look seriously at climate change and try and work out ways that we can help people, support people and stop this kind of damage from happening in the future.
Yellow weather warnings are in place for today across Cumbria, the Scottish borders, Wales and Devon and Cornwall. It means more rain, which could lead to travel disruption and flooded roads. Damage to homes and businesses is still possible. These are anxious times for people living in low-lying areas. Aruna Iyengar, BBC News.
Well, let's find out more about the situation in Cumbria. This morning, our reporter Megan Patterson is in Cockermouth this morning for us. Megan, very good morning to you. I'm looking at the river behind you. What I can see, it's a little hard because it's in the dark, obviously, but we can see the river is flowing really fast.
Absolutely. Well, this is the River Derwent and it is flowing fast, as you say. It is very full, but thankfully we've had a bit of respite overnight from those heavy rain showers which plagued South and West Cumbria yesterday and the day before. Now, we've still got 9 flood warnings in place here in the county, but that's gone down from 13 yesterday. The rain is beginning to come again this morning. The Environment Agency say this is a slowly improving picture, but they're still urging people to be cautious. We know that there's still disruption on the roads and rail networks across the county going on over to Scotland. We know that yesterday around 40 properties were flooded here in Cockermouth and further west in Egremont too. People there having to pump the floodwater out of their homes, as we saw. Today will be about drying out, will be about cleaning up. Frustration for them, many of them who flooded once before, twice before. So today the Environment Agency is warning people to stay away from the floodwater, to be vigilant. Community responders have been out in Cockermouth overnight. They've been ready to help people if it was necessary for them to leave their homes. Thankfully, that hasn't been the case so far. The amber weather warning was downgraded last night. There is still a weather alert though going on until this afternoon, so it's a case of watch and wait, but for many people in Cumbria they're getting up and they're cracking on with their day, hopeful that the weather is kinder.
Megan, thank you.
The French ambassador to the UK has been summoned to the Foreign Office today as a dispute over post-Brexit fishing rights appears to be deepening.
A British trawler has been detained in Normandy, and French ministers are threatening more action unless the UK issues more licences to fish in its waters. With more, here's our political correspondent, David Grammaticus.
In May, French fishing boats gathered off Jersey. Their anger is that despite the UK and Jersey agreeing after Brexit that French boats could continue fishing in coastal waters, dozens have applied and not had permits approved. The issue for many French boats is proving they've habitually fished in UK and Jersey waters. Smaller boats may not have had monitoring systems to track their movements. Their current access will expire this weekend. If more licences are not granted by next week, the French government has said it will impose measures that could limit UK trade.
As Britain does not respect what was agreed regarding licences for our fishermen, we will strictly limit British boats landing their catches in French ports. We will begin systematic health and customs inspections and will put in place checks on exports heading to the UK.
Yesterday, this UK trawler was detained. It's now in the port of Le Havre, accused of fishing without a permit in French waters. Now, UK seafood exporters are worried they may face disruption supplying their biggest market, the EU, in the key period before Christmas, and don't want a dispute with French fishermen.
We fish the same areas, we need joint management, and big politics is trying to get in the way of that, and we're trying to maintain the bridges that we have with them. At the end of the day, they're our colleagues and we fish alongside them. We don't want to see their businesses fail.
In London, the government has called the proposed French actions unjustified.
The government has said we're very happy to give the licences to the very few remaining people who have not got their licences, but we need to have some evidence to show that you meet the criteria.
But with the French ambassador summoned to the Foreign Office and the UK government promising an appropriate response, the political dynamics could see this dispute escalate fast. Damien Grammaticus, BBC News.
Our political correspondent Nick Adley is in Westminster. Nick, morning to you. So it all sounds very dramatic, doesn't it, when you say the French ambassador has been summoned? OK, so then what?
Well, I mean, it is quite dramatic. The French ambassador being summoned to the Foreign Office isn't something that happens very often, and it's all to do with this escalating war of words over fishing rights. One of those things that has always been quite a symbolic issue between the UK and France, and it's all about whether enough licences are being issued for French fishermen as part of, I beg your pardon, the Brexit deal. So, as you heard in Damien's piece there, the French are extremely unhappy that a number of licences have been rejected, and they are really upping the rhetoric over this. You know, there's been talk of some ports blocking British boats, of more checks on British boats going in to other ports. That's absolutely infuriated the UK government, who say they're working as hard as they can to process these licences. But it does feel that this is getting worse before it gets better. So yes, we'll have the French ambassador summoned to the Foreign Office today, but it's all about whether they can figure out some sort of solution over the next few days, and at the moment it doesn't look particularly good. One thing to watch out for, by the way, is that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the French President Emmanuel Macron are both at the G20 in Rome over the next few days. It'll be interesting to see whether they get together to discuss some of this. But as I say, at the moment, a row that's kind of been bubbling under for the last few weeks has really exploded out into the open, and it looks like it's getting worse rather than better. OK, all right, Nick, thanks so much. Nick Adley there for us.
We're saying as well, 7:30 this morning, speaking to the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Secretary George Eustice. Of course, fishing rights comes within his area of government department.
The Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has apologised unreservedly for calling Conservatives scum at her party's conference.
She initially stood by the remarks, but said she had reflected since that there was too much abuse in political debate and vowed to be more careful about her language.
E-cigarettes could soon be prescribed on the NHS in England to help people stop smoking. The medicines regulator is inviting manufacturers to submit products for approval. It could mean England becomes the first country in the world to prescribe e-cigarettes as a medical product.
The social networking giant Facebook has changed its corporate name to Meta as part of a major rebrand. Change does not apply to its individual platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, only the parent company that owns them. Founder Mark Zuckerberg said the new name better reflects the firm's ambitions to move beyond social media and into areas such as virtual reality.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.